Endocrine control. Chapter 32. An orchestra of hormones. Hormones influence the growth, development, and reproductive cycles of nearly all animals. They influence behavior, physical appearance, and well-being. Hormones, secreted by endocrine glands, endocrine cells, and certain neurons. Animal hormones travel through the bloodstream to non-adjacent target cells. Other signaling molecules. Neurotransmitters. Local signaling molecules. Pheromones. Endocrine system main sources: pituitary gland, adrenal glands, thyroid gland, parathyroid glands, pineal gland, thymus gland, hypothalamus, pineal gland, pituitary gland, thyroid gland, parathyroid glands, thymus gland, adrenal glands, pancreatic islets, ovaries. Figure 32.2b, p. 523. Testes. Responses to hormones vary. Different hormones activate different responses in the same target cell. Not all types of cells respond to a particular hormone. Two main hormone types: steroid hormones, peptide hormones, derived from cholesterol, estrogens, progestins, androgens, such as testosterone, cortisol, aldosterone, peptide hormones, peptides, proteins, or glycoproteins, glucagon, ADH, oxytocin, TRH, insulin, somatotropin, prolactin, FSH, LH, TSH, steroid hormone action. Most diffuse across the plasma membrane and bind to a receptor. Hormone receptor complex acts in nucleus to inhibit or enhance transcription, protein synthesis. Hormone receptor complex. Steroid hormones. Hormone. Most diffuse across the plasma membrane and bind to a receptor. Hormone receptor complex acts in nucleus to inhibit or enhance transcription. Receptor. Hormone receptor complex. Gene product. Protein hormone. Hormone binds to a receptor at cell surface. Glucagon. Hormone binds to a receptor at cell surface. Binding triggers a change in activity of enzymes inside the cell. Glucagon receptor. Cyclic AMP. Plus pi. ATP. CAMP activates. Protein kinase A. Protein kinase A converts phosphorylase kinase to active form and inhibits SYN, enzyme required for glucagon synthesis. The hypothalamus region in the brain contains hormone-secreting cells. Interacts with pituitary. Pituitary gland, hypothalamus, pituitary gland. Bone at base of cranial cavity. Anterior lobe. Posterior lobe. Figure 32.2a, p. 522. Pituitary gland, two lobes. Posterior lobe, neurohypophysis, stores and secretes hormones that were synthesized in the hypothalamus. Anterior lobe, adenohypophysis, produces and secretes its own hormones. Posterior lobe, antidiuretic hormone, ADH, oxytocin, OCT. Cell body in hypothalamus. Antidiuretic hormone, ADH. Oxytocin, OCT. Axons. To the general circulation. Cell body in hypothalamus. Posterior lobe of pituitary. Oxytocin. ADH. Axons. Kidney tubules. Mammary glands. Smooth muscle and wall of the uterus. To the general circulation. Figure 32.5, p. 527. Anterior pituitary. ACT. TSH. FSH. LH. PRL. STH. Cell bodies secrete, releasing and inhibiting hormones. Growth promoting effects on most cells. Anterior lobe of pituitary. STH. GH. ACT. PRL. Capillary bed at base of hypothalamus. TSH. FSH, LH. Both act on adrenal cortex, thyroid, gonads, mammary glands, capillary bed and anterior pituitary. Figure 32.6, p. 527. Feedback mechanisms: negative feedback, positive feedback. An increase in concentration of a hormone triggers activities that inhibit further secretion. Positive feedback. An increase in concentration of a hormone triggers activities that stimulate further secretion. Control of cortisol secretion. 1. Hypothalamus senses decline in glucose and secretes a releasing hormone, CRH. CRH stimulates anterior pituitary to secrete ACT. ACT acts on the adrenal cortex to stimulate cortisol secretion. Control of cortisol secretion. 2. Inhibits blood glucose uptake by muscle and other tissues. Causes breakdown of proteins to amino acids and conversion to glucose. Causes degradation of adipose tissue to fatty acids for use as energy source. Control of cortisol secretion. 3. Decrease in glucose uptake and release of glucose from protein breakdown causes blood glucose level to rise. Hypothalamus and anterior pituitary detect the increase and decrease secretion of CRH and ACT. Adrenal cortex decreases cortisol secretion. Thyroid gland disorders. Goiter. Hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism. Feedback control of ovaries. Pituitary produces hormones, LH, FSH, that stimulate egg maturation and ovulation in the ovary. They also stimulate ovary to produce progesterone and estrogen. After ovulation, rising levels of these hormones inhibit further secretion of LH and FSH. Control of glucose metabolism. Insulin. Glucose uptake. Glucose to glycogen. Glucose falls. Glucose is absorbed. Cells use glucose. Glucose rises. Glycogen to glucose. Glucagon. Diabetes mellitus. Disease in which excess glucose accumulates in blood, then urine. Effects include excessive urination, constant thirst, weight loss, ketone formation and acid-base imbalances.